Hi guys. It's been a while. I know. But for good reason. And my reason is I just simply haven't read anything that warranted a video. So I didn't make one. And that's fine. I don't know. Anyways, I'm sure you've already read the title of this video, so you already know what book we're going to be talking about today. Sorry, that was my dog. So I'm sure you can already see. It's Iron Flame review time. Okay? It's time. It's finally time. It's finally here. Well, actually, it's been here. Iron Flame has been out now for, I think, almost 2 weeks, and I finished it about 2 weeks ago, and I've had this ready for 2 weeks, and I just haven't made it because I get lazy. So let's just get started. My name is Celeste, and if you are new here, welcome. If you are not new here, welcome back. Thanks for coming back and watching another review. So I did 2 reviews back in September, I think, for Haunting and Hunting Adeline. And I did them in PowerPoint form. And I didn't do that for my Fourth Wing review for some reason. I don't know why I didn't. But I'm bringing it back because I think personally it helped me a lot. And a lot of people said that they liked that format. So we're just bringing it back. So here's the PowerPoint. I tried my best to make it look like the cover of the book. Did I do a great job? No. Objectively, no. Does it look fine? Sure. First things first, if you haven't read Iron Flame or Fourth Wing and you're watching this video, that's a you problem. Go read it if you want to go read it. If you don't care and you just want to watch this video, thank you for wanting to listen to me talk. But just know that there are full spoilers ahead. I made an entire PowerPoint about this book. So obviously there's going to be spoilers. Just like in the last PowerPoint, we're calling it Book Report. So welcome to Book Report. This is Iron Flame. Sit your ass down, and we're going to first start with our main character, Violet Sorrengail. So here are the PowerPoints about Miss Violet. She is our main character. She's the person that we read her point of view from. So she's still really fucking short. Obviously, I don't think she was going to grow between 2 books. She is super powerful. Like, she's a lightning wielder, which is super rare. She also is bonded to 2 dragons, so she might get a second power. Okay, I'm gonna mispronounce a lot of things. Singet. I'm gonna call them powers because I can do whatever I want. So she might get a second power. We don't know yet. In this book, she's also really bad at communicating with her boyfriend. But also, in her defense, so is her boyfriend. They're both really bad at communication. She, again, is a lightning wielder, so anytime she's having a good time, there is lightning. And when I say good time, I mean having a good time in her bed. Yeah, so every time her and Xaden are fucking, literally the entire school can probably tell. And you know what? That's embarrassing, but also that's also queen shit, I think. She has really bad mommy issues that kind of get addressed in this book and also made me cry, even though I personally don't have mommy issues. She has a dead dad. She was supposed to be a scribe, but now has to kill people with knives and not knowledge, although she does use her noggin a lot, and she is very smart. She does have a joint disability. I didn't write it in my PowerPoint, but she does have a little bit of, like, her character with the disability doesn't always make sense because, like I said, she has a joint disability, but can do a split on the dick, but has a hard time on her dragon. So sometimes, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I feel like we aren't fully addressing how the disability affects her everyday life. But that's just me. And I'm taking that point from people who have mentioned that, who have that disability or are disabled please. She also has 2 dragons. I mentioned that. Second, we have, wow, holy I forgot that I did this. It's been a while since I looked at this PowerPoint, so sorry. Our next person is Xaden Ryerson. He is the boyfriend to Violet. I don't think they ever fully acknowledge each other as boyfriend and girlfriend. Anyways, he is racially ambiguous Shadow Man number 1 million point billion quadrillion, because in every fantasy book there is one. We don't know what race he is, but he's tan, has dark hair, and can wield shadows. The only thing that's different about this guy is that he doesn't have fucking wings. Sorry, that is the most annoying part about his character, is that he is literally just a blue, like a copy and paste from Rhysand from Akatar. He makes me kick my feet. Like, there was so many times where I was reading this book and I was like, okay. He's also now Lieutenant Ryerson to you. He has graduated. He is no longer wing leader, right? I also said he is also bad at communicating with his girlfriend, but is semi okay with boundary setting. Wow, I could not get that out. So in the book, he sets a lot of boundaries, but they're also the two of them are just really bad at talking to each other about how they feel, telling each other like the truth. And like, I don't know, like he does a really good job at setting his boundaries. Does he break a lot of the boundaries? Yes. Does he himself break the boundary? Yes. So that's a different issue. But the miscommunication trope in this, I really fucking hated it. He's the son of a rebel leader, but also a prince. Like, they brought that up where like technically he could be a prince, but they don't really say anything else about that. So I'm sure that'll come up in like the next or further down the line. At the beginning of the book, he literally ate Dana like a 7-course meal. He like put that bitch in his place, and it was great. I loved it. But then Rebecca decided that she wanted to fuck around and find out. At the end of this fucking book, Xaden turns into a venom. In the literal last fucking chapter, she decided, you know what I'm gonna do? I am going to make the main male character, turn into a bad guy, and then I'm gonna go on a mental health break and not write. And then you guys are just gonna be in the dark for however long. Thanks, guys. Fuck you. Yeah, why did you do that, Rebecca? Why? That was fucked up. Okay, here's the next one. Tarn. When I read his name, I call him Tarn. Tarn. This is Violet's dragon. He's big, scary. He's a little sassy. He loves fucking with Violet. He is dad. Like Violet literally says dad, like mom and dad are fighting when she's talking about him and Seagal. He will kill for his rider, and honestly, that is so slay, because he does kind of feel like a dad. And like I said, he's bonded to mom, who's Seagal, who, if you don't remember or didn't read the book, is Xaden's dragon. Then we have Andarna. Okay, I know I'm saying that wrong, because I watched the TikTok where Rebecca says her name, and it's like Anduarnam. Aluminum. And I'm not fucking saying that. Her name's Andarna, okay? She's a teenager now. She don't give a fuck. She's sassy, but in the teenage girl way. Every time Tarn tells her to do something, she's kind of like not listening and like doesn't give a fuck. She is now not gold, and she's like this weird seventh dragon breed that's like a chameleon, We find that out at the end of the book and we do not know. She's one of my favorite characters, even though we don't get a whole lot of her in this book because she's asleep half the time. But she is also slay. Okay, here's the gang. I just decided to put them all. So we have Ree. She is a smart, strong lady who I love very much. And Rebecca, you better leave her the fuck alone, or I swear to God, I will show up on your doorstep. I will ring your video doorbell because I know you got one. And I will want in, and I will want to know why. And then I'm going to sit you down at your computer and I'm going to make you rewrite that in front of me and send it off to your publisher so that I don't have to worry about this woman because I love her. And you know what? Now she is a girl boss because she's section leader. Okay? She is now Dane, but not Dane because Dane fucking sucks. And I know he gets a little bit better, but I don't care. He's still kind of ass. Then we have Jacina. She is our deaf representation. She is in the She is in the scribe quadrant. She is training to be a scribe, and she is a smart girly. She helps a lot with finding things in... Wow, I'm blanking on what it's called. Wherever the scribes are. The archives. Holy fuck, I really couldn't think of the word archives. Anytime there's something to do with the archives, Jacina is the girl. She's the one getting them in. And then we have Rydok. I think that's how you say his name. He is just simply a himbo. That's all I have to say about him. He is our comedic relief. And then we have Sawyer, who is also himbo number 2 and has a big old crush on Jacina. So he's learning how to sign for her. And I think it's really cute. Although in the first book, when Liam was like flirting with her, Violet was like, oh, she's not like a long-term relationship kind of girl. So I don't know if we just like kind of forgot about that and we're just gonna have Sawyer and Jacina become lovebirds and just kind of forget about that part, or just because we knew it was gonna happen to Liam and so we didn't want to further devastate us anymore. Which, thanks. So the siblings, we have all of the siblings together. So we have Mira, who we met in, oh, you can't see Brennan's picture. Okay, hold on. So now we have the siblings. All 3 of the Sorrengail siblings are reunited in this book. So first we have Mira, who we met obviously in 4th Wing, like in literally the beginning of the chat in the book. She is a very skilled fighter. She is also a lieutenant, I believe. And there's a really funny scene where she's traumatized by Violet and Xaden making out in the courtyard / in front of her. And I love Mira. And then we have Brennan, who is not dead and is now a leader of the rebellion. He goes by another name. I literally still don't know what it is, and I'm not going to look it up because he's just Brennan. And he has really bad mommy issues. Like, really bad. So, yeah. Like, I would say of all 3 of the siblings, his mommy issues are bombastically out of this fucking world. Like, they're so bad. Okay, I keep doing that. Here's a timeline. Okay, I'm gonna have to just... This is all over the place because this whole book... So here's something crazy, okay? So I saw a TikTok. This is coming off of kind of a little tangent. I saw a TikTok where someone was like, oh, did you feel like Iron Flame took you forever to read? And I was like, yeah, because it's like smaller than a lot of the other books that I read. Like, I read Kingdom of Ash in like 2 days, and it took me Iron Flame like about a week, which I know is fast for a lot of people. That's fast for me. But I was like reading it. Anytime I had free time, I was reading it. And it felt like I was not getting through it. And someone said, oh, well, that's because it has more words than fucking House of Earth and Blood. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So this is all, like, there's a lot that happened, and I tried my best to pinpoint the big things that really mattered. You can't really see all of it in here. I know. I don't know why it's not fitting into my screen, but I'll just read it to you. So we're going to start at the beginning over here. See my little blue? So we open up the book. Violet has recovered from the ending events of 4th Wing, where she like literally almost died. And she has some thoughts about Xaden. Presumably that she doesn't trust him. Also, we learned that Andarna is a teenager now, and she's going to something called the Big Sleep. It's not called that, but I'm calling it that. And so when she wakes up, she's in this big old house, castle thing, which is where Xaden grew up. And it's also where, like, kind of like the rebel headquarters are. And so Brennan is there, and like they have their whole council, and they're talking about what they're gonna do, because now they have a bunch of students there. Do we keep them? Do we send them off? What are they gonna do? So they decide to send them back to Basgiath, because they would be really suspicious if they didn't go. And so they get back to Basgiath. They are arriving for graduation, which means Xaden, it's time for him to graduate. And Dane, like, comes up. So, okay, wait. So they enter into Basgiath at graduation, and they're reading off the death toll. And they're reading off the entire, like, everyone. Like, Violet, Xaden, Liam, like, all of them. Like, they're just naming them dead. Of course, the only one that's actually dead is Liam. But they just count him as dead. And so obviously they're not. And Violet's mom is pissed because she's there. And she's like, why would you tell me that my daughter's dead when she's not? To Dane's dad. I forget his name. So they tell him to get back into line so they can get graduation started. And Dane, like, runs over and he's like, Violet, are you okay? And she's like, get the fuck away from me, because obviously if, like, he touches her face, he's going to know literally everything that just happened. Like, literally everything. And so she's like, get the fuck away from me. And everyone's like, oh, okay, what the fuck is going on? And Xaden literally is like, what does he say? He's like, she never chose you. She doesn't want you. Leave her alone. Like, basically, that's kind of like it. It was like a whole paragraph, but he basically ate his ass up. And so Dane goes back into line, and he's pissed. And then we find out that Xaden has been assigned to an outpost, and it's not a very good outpost because they thought he was dead, so they had to kind of, like, assign him to, like, a shitty one. And so it is determined that they will have leave once a week for only 24 hours because the dragons are bonded and they have to be around each other, which is kind of a problem because they've only been apart for 3 days at a time. So yeah. So Violet's mom is pissed that, like, Dane's dad sent them off basically to their death, and then also just tallied them as dead even though they weren't. And so she sends him off somewhere else, and there's a new sheriff in town. His name's Varish. I kept calling him Varnish because that's all my brain would say every time I read the word. And he's an absolute dickbag. He has a dragon that literally kills a bunch of dragon riders. Like, so if you think about it this way, Violet is starting her second year. So all of the first years are going through the things that we read last book. So they do the parafit. She's watching people go along. And, like, do you remember in Fourth Wing when, like, the dragons came when Violet was a first year, and it was, like, basically like, don't run away or else the dragons are gonna fucking kill you. They're gonna burn you. And so someone runs away, and his dragon, Varish's dragon, just watches them and is like letting them get away. So obviously the farther that they get away, the more people that he's going to kill. So he kills a bunch of dragon riders, not even just first years who haven't bonded. So he's fucking crazy. And back to Parafit, because I kind of jumped a little bit. Violet promised Liam that she'd look after his sister when he came into the Riders Quadrant. And so Violet's on the Parafit with Rhi and Dane. And so she sees Sloane, who's Liam's sister, and she, like, gives her some pointers. She's like, put your hair up. What'd you say? Put your hair up. Like, take it slow, whatever. And Sloane basically is like, I know that you killed my brother. I fucking hate you. I want you dead. And Violet's like, well, that's cool, but just listen to me because I told him I'd look after you. And Sloane's like, I fucking hate you. Like, she's being like a little shit. And Sloane makes her cross, but she like vows to try and kill Violet. Like, it's so like little sister, like teenager thing, whatever. And so Violet and her group that she was in for the war games begin to become targeted because Dane's father has assigned, or hired, I should say, different people within the fucking writer's quadrant, a lot of first years, to come kill them because of what they know. And we find this out because when they're doing like the initial like fights, I should say, like the first years, like in Fourth Wing, when they had to like spar on the mat. So Sloane is like, I want to fight Violet. And the professor's like, you can't fight Violet. Like, pick someone else. And this like first year comes, where's Violet Sorrengail? Where? And so this girl, oh, I forget what her name is, but she's like, I'm Violet. And he just snaps her fucking neck. And Violet's like, okay. And then finds out like he attacks her because she's like, I'm Violet. Why the fuck did you just kill someone that said they're Violet? And he says like, secrets die with people or something. And she knows that is Dane's father because that's something that he said to her. And so now everyone like Imogen, Xaden, Violet, I'm forgetting his name, Xaden's cousin, are all being targeted. So Violet begins to spend more time with Imogen because A, they're all trying to be attacked, and B, Imogen is still continuing to help train her. She's also one of the only people that Violet can really talk to because Imogen was literally there, and Xaden gave Violet the suggestion that if you cannot keep a secret from your friends, just try to not talk to them. Because that's a really good idea. They totally won't get confused. Yeah, that was really bad fucking advice because Violet's like, I like keep pushing away all these people that I need to talk to and like people that I need. And this makes Rhee suspicious. She's like, why are you literally hanging out with someone, Imogen, who wanted you dead last year? Why are you guys now friends? What happened at the war games? And Violet's like, nothing. It's fine. Like, she's just a friend. And Violet's just really bad at lying. So as they're doing like flight maneuvers, wow, I could not get that word out. As they're doing flight maneuvers, Varish is again kind of targeting Violet because A, of her mother, B, because of the war games, and C, because he's a dick. And he's like, where's your golden dragon? And she's like, she's not here because she can't hold a rider, so there's no point in bringing her to flight lessons. When actually she's just asleep because she's a child, teenager, prepubescent. And so Varish is like, she better be at the next class or else you're getting punished. Obviously, Andarna's not there because she's fucking hibernating. And so Varish punishes Violet by making her use her power up to like 40 times, like causing her to be on near burnout. Like she literally collapses and has to be taken to a fucking river because she's burning out. This guy is fucking crazy. And so like Xaden and Violet have their little rendezvous throughout the book, and we kind of start where they have all this tension, like romantic tension, because they both still care about each other, but they just don't trust each other. Specifically, Violet doesn't trust Xaden, which to a certain extent, yes, I understand, but also Imogen makes a really good point where she's like, he can't tell you everything because you can't properly shield yourself. So you can't expect him to tell you this really vital information when you still have the ability, when people still can get into your mind and figure out what that information is. It's not that he doesn't trust you, it's just that he doesn't trust other people, you know? And Violet's like, no, he doesn't trust me. And it got so fucking annoying. So Xaden, they continue to have their trust and communication issues until Well, not until. It continues after this. And Xaden creates the boundary that until she says, I love you, they will not do anything. No kissing, no munching, no fucking, no nothing. Okay? And Violet's like, that's stupid. Your boundary is stupid, Xaden. Which it's not. I think it's a very valid boundary because boundaries are valid, Violet. And then we continue, and Dane and Violet, like, we're coming back to the sparring ring, and Dane challenges Violet, and she's like, you're fucking kidding me, because all he needs to do is get his hands on her face, and it's over for literally everyone. They're all going on the chopping block. And so she's like, you stole my memories without my knowledge or my consent. And he's like, I haven't. He's like, I didn't know about the war games. I didn't know that my dad was going to send you somewhere dangerous. Like, it wasn't intentional. I did not do it to harm you. I didn't do it because I was jealous. I just did what my father said, and I didn't know what he was doing. And then he goes, well, you know those scars on Xaden's back? Do you know who gave them to him? Your mom. Which I feel like I knew that already, but maybe it's just like foreshadowing in the first book that I was like, oh, it's definitely her, like his mom. Like, I don't know. I guess just the way that like Rebecca wrote it was just like, oh yeah, I have all these lashes for all the rebel kids because your mom made a deal with me that I would take a beating for all of them and then they could live by going to the writer's quadrant. And so I was like, oh, so his mom gave them to him. Like, I don't know. I put two and two together. Violet didn't for some reason. So in the second year, the cadets or writers, I guess, have to go through like basically torture training, which obviously is not very good for Violet because she actually has torturable information. And so they do the first one, and essentially it's just like they all have information that's fake. Like, oh, the key is in the cabinet. That's literally it. Like, they all get fed fake information. It's not that they have to like give their actual secrets. It's literally just, we're gonna torture you, kind of like when cops have to get tased. I don't know. That was my first thought. It gets to the point where like Varish is trying to bring in Dane so that he like tortures the information out of her. He's like beating the shit out of her friends, and Violet doesn't give out any information. Dane is like, no, I'm not fucking doing that. And so it's alluded that Varish brings in the healer. I forget his name. And he's like, we're going to be back. Heal to your wounds or whatever. Like, we'll be back for your information. Essentially saying that if you don't get out now, you're fucked. Like, we might kill you. So they barely get out. And then they get back to class. And then they find out Jack Barlow is fucking alive. Why? Because throughout the entire book, the healer, I can't think of what his name is, but he has been like ragged, like run ragged. He looks like absolute shit. And he hasn't been able to like help anyone because he's so tired, because he's like been mending something or healing something. And people think that like they're torturing people and like he's mending them. And so he's constantly like healing and healing and healing, and they're just breaking the shit out of these people. And then we find out that no, he was just literally bringing back Jack fucking Barlow to life. Why did we need him back? How is he back? Because he literally he got struck by fucking lightning and fell under a burning rubble or whatever the fuck it was, but he's definitely should not be alive. Like, that still does not make sense to me. Also, I don't think it was necessary. Like, I really don't think it was necessary at all. I think we could have used a different character for what he sets up. Then they're just like learning and learning and learning, blah, blah, blah. Violet's trying to figure out the wards, because that's one of the things about Xaden's house place, is that the issue is that there aren't any wards. So if there is an attack, they're fucked. And so she's like, well, you guys have like a ward stone, so you should be able to raise wards. We just literally don't know how to raise them. All we know is how to maintain them. But there has to be an original copy of the history of how to raise them. Like, there's no way that they would completely erase that, because obviously, and like this makes sense, is that if the wards were to fall, they would have to have something that told them how to raise them. So she's like, I know that there's something, until like there's an attack on Xaden's outpost. And one of her professors, like, she kind of like itches the spot where his rebellion relic is and looks at Violet, kind of telling her like the one person that was injured was Xaden. Like, she was kind of like signaling to her like it was Xaden. But they're not telling anyone that it was Xaden. And so Violet and Tarn head over to the outpost, mostly because, well, Violet obviously wanted to go make sure he was okay, but mostly because Tarn was so like emotional and needed to go see Seagal that like he basically not intentionally used compulsion to like make Violet go. But because they're tied together, their emotions are so closely linked that if Tarn is upset, it makes Violet upset. And like, she has the compulsion to go follow what he says. So they go, finds out Xaden's fine, but he was attacked and he got mended. And they break the boundary and they have shower sex. And then Xaden gives Violet a special dagger that is used to kill Venom. And so obviously Violet, she comes back to the college because she broke the rule. She did not have leave. So now she's fucked. She's probably gonna get punished. And she comes up to her room, and then there's Varish, and he's like, you weren't supposed to leave. Show me your bag. And she's like, why? He's like, you're wearing a lieutenant's coat. That's not right. That's illegal. What is it called? You're pretending to be an officer. Stolen valor. And like, she's like, no, I'm not. And so eventually there's another professor that comes, and they're like, no, like, she's not pretending to be a lieutenant. She's just wearing flight leathers that have the lieutenant on it. And she cannot control her emotions yet because of her dragon. She hasn't properly learned how to block out her dragon. So she's off the hook, but Varys is still like, I need to see your bag. And in that bag is a dagger for Venom. And it's kind of like, if they see this, like, obviously the higher ups know what is going on. They're just not telling any of the writers. And she's like, okay. And she kind of just comes to the conclusion that she's like, I'm going to be fucked. I'm just going to die because I'm not giving them any information. And so she opens up her bag. She opens up her flight leathers, and there's no dagger. And she's like, see, I'm fine. And then they leave because they're like, whatever, we'll get you next time. And motions her into the door with the dagger, because if you remember, her power is that she can like move objects through walls, or like she can essentially like teleport items to her. And so she has to tell them everything. So she does. And finally, Violet feels like she has like this weight lifted off her shoulder, because her friends kind of made a good point where it's like, well, let us consent to being involved. You can't just hide stuff from us thinking that we don't want to be involved, because whatever you're doing, we want to be helping you and do it too, because we trust that whatever you're doing is noble. So now she can let her friends in on everything that's going on. Xaden is not very happy, but he understands that she didn't really have a choice. She lets him know that her plan is to get into the archives, because Jacina has told her that she has found, or she knows, or no, okay, it's not Jacina. So the king's son, I totally forgot to put this in there. The king's son, it snuck his way into the writer's quadrant, okay? Because he knows what's going on. And he was like, oh, or someone, I think it was like Sawyer or Ryddock. It was Ryddock, because it was like the first time that he said something of merit. And he's like, oh yeah, the original copies of like the first 6 and their, journals are in the archives. And everyone's like, and you know this, how? And he's like, oh, I thought it was common knowledge. Case in point, himbo number 1. And so Justina's like, I can get you in there, but you need someone with royal blood to get in there because they have wards and stuff. The son of the king, he kind of snuck into the writer's quadrant. He was definitely not supposed to be a writer, but he knows what's going on, like what they're hiding from the citizens. And so he's like, I want to fight for good and basically also say fuck you to my dad. So they kind of rope him into it because they're like, we know you know what's going on. And if you don't help, then you're basically a piece of shit. And he's like, fine, I'll help. So Violet, Xaden, the king's son, and the rest of the gang go to retrieve these first editions of the journal. So Cam, when he reaches, like, they finally get to the wards, and they're like racing against time because the wards inside the archives seal out enough air so that anyone can't live, because obviously oxygen can lead to fires, which can destroy books. So they're racing against time, and finally they find it. They find the books, the journals, underneath like this ward, and the way that was described was so nasty. Cam has to reach his hand in there, and it's just blistering, and he grabs it, and his hands are just like burnt and blistered, and so they finally get out, but they set off the royal like alarms, so people know that there was a breach in the security of the archives. And so they send off Cam to go get his hands healed because they're going to be looking at their hands because they know that whoever reached in without proper clearance is going to have burned hands. And so she sends off Xaden with one of the journals. And of course, Varish is like, what are you doing? What you got? Let me see what you have. And of course, they find the journal on her, and she is taken to a torture room and is tortured. And this scene, like this part of the book, was really hard because she's so on the verge of death for most of it that she literally sees Liam and he's like helping her with it, and I was fucking crying. And I think it took like a day or two until eventually Dane, like they bring Dane in to read her mind because they're like, we need to see what she's done. And so Dane is like, I'm so sorry, like, and she just lets herself, like, she's like, I am going to show you everything. Because here's the thing that someone had once said to her is that yes, he can read your memories, but you can control what order he has to sift through them, like a file cabinet. So like if he's looking for a certain memory, you can put ones in front of it and like make him sift through them. So she shows him everything, and Dane loses it on Varish. And then Xaden comes, and it's just kind of like a bloodbath because then Violet kills Varish, and then her mom shows up, and then her mom is like, yeah, I did that to Xaden. I'm sorry. And I know that you know the truth. You can decide to leave if you want. I won't stop you. But you better be good. Essentially, like she's torn, but she's not motherly. And so Violet is like, well, if I'm going to leave, I'm going to tell the rest of the War College, and they can decide if they want to leave too. So she makes a little assembly, and she's like, hey, everyone, this is what's happening. There's venin and wyverns, and there's the Gryphon riders are not that bad. And you've been lied to. If you want to come with us, you can. And so a bunch of people go with them. Like, I think about like half the college goes with them. And some of the professors too. Like the professor that did Battle Brief. I forget her name, but she was the one that like signaled to Violet about the attack. She also like put up fake propaganda, but it turned out to be real. And so she's been kind of trying to weasel her way into the truth, into the war college. And then eventually she's like, fuck it, I'm just going with the rebels. And so now Xaden's house is the new war college. And they're trying to figure out like what they're going to do because they have to house all these students. And then also it turns out that Xaden like dropped a wyvern at each outpost because he was so pissed about them like capturing Violet, that now all of the like lieutenants and all the people who have graduated, all the writers, also now know the truth, and they can also make the decision to leave. And so of course Mira comes to Xaden's house. She sees Brennan and she does what you don't think she's gonna do and just punches him because she's pissed, obviously, because she's like, why the fuck did you make us think that you were dead? Why did we bury you if you're fucking alive? And he's like, Mira, it's fine. Mira, I'm fine. And it's just kind of like the siblings are together and Violet's like, I've regained my position as the youngest sister and it feels good. I thought that was a very heartfelt moment, even though like Mira was basically beating the shit out of her brother. So Violet now has the journals, and she and Jacina are researching how to put up the wards. And so Violet thinks that she has them, and she kind of gets them up, but they're faulty. They don't quite work well. There is this knowledge of the need of a luminary, which is essentially a device that completes a forge. So they think that they would need it for the wards. And the person that has it is this guy named Viscount Tecarus. And he's like really weird and like really gross and like kind of an asshole, because why wouldn't he be? And so Violet's like, the wards don't work because the thing is that they're up enough to fight off a venom attack because the wyverns get to the wards and then they die. So the venom retreat. And but we find out that they don't fully work because Mira, who is like an extension of the wards, she can extend them, can't use her power still, which means that the wards are not strong enough to also power Mira, if that makes sense. So they're faulty. So Violet's like, well, we need that luminary, and you're going to take me to Tecarus, Xaden. And so Xaden, Mira, Brennan, and Violet go to this gigantic castle with Viscount Tecarus, and he's like, we're going to have a dinner, and then you're going to show me what you can do so that I know that you're worthy of this luminary. Turns out his niece, Kat, is Xaden's ex, and she is just not a girl's girl, and it's so annoying. Like, she's just that classic like ex-girlfriend that's like, he still wants me, blah blah blah, like he loved when I did this, I'm so hot, you're not. And she's like really fucking annoying, like so much. And her power, she's a Gryphon rider, her power is that she can like heighten other people's emotions. So she's like constantly like using her power to piss off Violet. And so they do their whole dinner. They have to dress up, and they do the whole dinner. And then Tecarus is like, okay, go down to this like field with that dresser, this armoire, and light it up with your lightning, but you have to go down there. It turns out there's a bunch of fucking venom in it because he's a fucking dick. Brennan, Mira, and Violet fight them off. They're able to get them, and then Xaden like nearly kills the Viscount, and then eventually is like, you're gonna give us what I want because she did what she told him to do, and you also like fucked with the system. So they were able to get the luminary, but he does it on one condition. Gryphon. I think that's supposed to be Gryphon, but I wrote Griffin. Whatever. Gryphon riders can now join the college because they also need to learn how to fight and how to fly. And so the gang is now called for a meeting at Basgiath, where the general Malgren has said, because he can see the battles, he can see them. As long as there's not 3 rebels, he can see the outcome of any battle. And he says that the Venin are going to attack the college. They're going for the wards. No, they're not going to attack the college. They're going to attack the wards, and that they need help because he has seen the outcome and they win. And he's like, we need your help because we didn't see you in the outcome, which means that maybe if we have your help, we might be able to win. So Violet is like, yes, like we should help civilians, because if the wards go down, civilian casualties will go up. Fair. Brennan's like, no, you haven't helped us. Brennan pisses me off so much in this book because he's so annoying. It's all because of his fucking mommy issues too. So now we know that there's going to be a Venin fight coming. And so the Gryphon Riders are trying their best to work together with the Dragon Riders. Cat is slowly warming up to Violet, but not before they fight it out on the mat. And Violet literally almost kills her. Which, you know what? Is fine. Because Cat really needed to be humbled. And so Xaden is there, obviously, now that they're not apart. And he, like, pulls Violet off. She's literally, like, choking her. Because what Cat is doing is she's using her power to make Violet more mad. And basically push Violet to the point where she kills her and feels guilty. Because she is a conniving bitch. And so, like, Xaden pulls Violet off, and he's like, come on, we're going. And then comes this, like, throne scene, which if you've read the book, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, she comes back stronger after that when it comes to dealing with Cat, because, like, Xaden does a lot of, like, he does a really good job of making sure that he, like, she knows that he is here for her. He does not give a fuck about Cat. He has not felt the same way about, he didn't ever felt the same way about Cat that he feels about Violet. And so Violet's like, you know what? You're right. And so there's like a line where Cat was like, you know that thing he does with his tongue? I taught him how to do it. And it made when Cat first said that, it made Violet like really insecure, because she was like, wow, like what have I taught him? And after the fight, and then after the throne scene, she's like, hey Cat, thanks for the tip on the tongue trick. It's really great. Violet, she kind of ate. We're going to kind of steamroll into the end because there's so much that happens. Varish, even though he's dead, his dragon has come back and is trying to, like, kill Violet, obviously. And in them fighting Varish's dragon, we find out that Sloane is a siphon, which means she can take, like, energy from other people's powers and essentially drain them. So that comes into play later. After this, Violet, Xaden, and the gang decide that, no, we should go help the college. Because why would we let civilians die? Then we're no better than the government we're fighting against. Which I think is fair. And then Violet puts 2 and 2 together she finds out that Seagal was actually Xaden's grandmother's dragon. And it's usually frowned upon that you don't bond with a dragon that is also bonded with someone in your in your family line, because it can either lead to a second Singed or complete and utter madness. And Violet's like, well, you aren't mad, so what's your second power? And Xaden's like, babe, what do you mean? Like, I don't have a second power. And she's like, I know you fucking do. Like, I'm not a fucking idiot. And he goes, you're gonna hate me when I tell you. You're gonna hate me. She's like, just fucking tell me. And it turns out Xaden is a mind reader, which if you remember, in the first book, is a punishable power. Like, there's that scene in Fourth Wing where that kid, like, his power, like, developed and he was a mind reader, and they just snapped his neck out in the quad and then went on about their day. So Xaden, tells her, he's like, I just did a really good job at holding it all together because I knew it would happen. And he's like, I think they think that because my shadows are so powerful that it kind of became a second Signet. Like somehow, like instead of having two, he just had one really powerful one. Now Violet doesn't fucking trust him again because she's like, did you ever use it on me? Did you do this? And he's like, no, I haven't, and I won't. And here's the thing. You're reading the book and you think, okay, here's the twist. Oh, it gets so much worse. It gets so much worse. They keep going to the college. Violet is like kind of accepting of the fact that like, okay, he hasn't used it on me. It's not something he chose, whatever. But they get there. And of course, Jack fucking Barlow decides, I'm going to break the wards. Why? Because he's a fucking Venom now. And then so he breaks the wards and then the Venom attack. But the gang do their job. They have their stuff, they have their formations down, and they're all doing it. No one dies, okay? None of the people in the gang die. Sawyer, Rhydock, Xaden, Violet, Reed, they don't die. Justina doesn't die. No one dies, okay? They got it locked. Sawyer, I think he loses his leg or his arm, but he's fine. He didn't die. So the writers are losing though. Like it's getting like, it's very well known that all of the writers are starting to lose powers. Like they're starting to burn out and there's more and more venom coming. So Violet's like, we have to fix the wards. And Brennan, he is a mender. And she's like, can you fix the ward stone? Because what Jack did to break the wards is that he like pushed off the stone and broke it in half. And she's like, you can mend the stone. So the entire time they're fighting, Brennan is working to mend the stone. And so violence. So Violet finally is like, I know how to fix the wards. Like she realizes it, like a little thing turns and she's like, I know how to power them. But we have to put power into the wards so that the dragons can, we have to put power into the word stone so that the dragons can ignite it. I think, if that makes sense. Like she has to siphon her power into the word stone so that it's essentially she has to like plug it in so that the dragons can turn it on. I don't know if that made sense, but it made sense in my head. Okay. And so God, this part really fucking ruined me, dude. So Violet is putting like all of her power into the word stone. Mind you, she's already basically on the verge of a burnout. Violet's mom is like, you guys have done so much for this college, for this country. So much for your family. Let me do the same for you. And she demands that Sloane use her power as a siphon to use her life force to power the word stone. So Violet's mother dies, powering the word stone. We find out that Andarna is not a black dragon because she, throughout the entire book, has been losing her gold scales and looks like a black dragon. Instead, she's like this rare 7th species of dragon. Let me move over really quick. Oh, she is this rare 7th species of dragon, who kind of is like a chameleon. And so she has the 6 or 7 different types of dragons, light the word stone up and the wards go up. Now at the same time, Xaden is fighting this like venom sage, and he doesn't know that Violet is basically about to raise the wards. So he's doing what he can to make sure that she is safe. And to do that, he agrees to become Venom to save her. And then, in the last chapter, we found out Jack Barlow is still not fucking dead. And Xaden visits him while he's in his little cell. And he asks, what's the cure? What is the cure? And Jack just goes, there is no cure. You're just going to want more power. There's no cure, brother. And then the book ends. And then I threw the book. Okay? And then I threw it. God. The way that this book ends pissed me off. But before we get into that, here's what I like about the book. Okay, we're gonna start off pretty positive. So what did I like about the book? I liked the character development. Although I didn't like the miscommunication trope, I do think it was somewhat necessary for some character development, especially for Xaden and Violet, especially for their relationship. Like, I feel like you can tell towards the end that Violet is a little bit more accepting and trusting of him, a lot more so than she was at the beginning of the book. And so I think that that was a really good show of development and her trust in her relationship, which is very much needed, especially in the second book. I think the second book of the series, in any series, has to really focus on character development, because if you think about it this way, especially in a fantasy series, the first book has to focus on the world building, introducing you to the characters, introducing you to the main conflict, and then setting you off on the rest of the series. The second book for me is always going to have to be the book of character development. Think about like Catching Fire. I know that is a very action-packed sequel, but I felt like it really led us into the development of Katniss and who she was as she goes into becoming the Mockingjay, into Peeta and who he is before everything happens with fucking Snow and all that. And so if a second book, if a sequel to me doesn't have good character development, it is not a good sequel. I know some people will not agree with that, because some people are like, character development is boring. It's not. I think it sets up a really good series and a really good story. That is just me. And I think that the character development in this book was actually pretty good. Did I like the miscommunication trope? No. We'll get to that. I feel like this had a lot of twists and turns. And since I read this book right as it came out, I was not spoiled. It was great. I could enjoy every single surprise without knowing what was going to happen. It's been a long time since that happened for me, where I read a book right at release. So I literally had no way of spoiling it for myself. Like, the Iron Flame wiki was not even filled out by that time. So I couldn't accidentally spoil something for myself by looking up some piece of lore that I forgot. I think the romance in this book still continues to be good. I love Xaden and Violet. That throne scene that I mentioned, my hands were shaking after I read that. And it was, again, like, I felt like it continued with as Fourth Wing. It felt like I wasn't reading. Like, it was just one of those books where, like, you open the book and you just go. Like, you just keep reading and you're in the pages and you just kind of forget, like, oh, I'm reading a story. You know, it was one of those books, and I always appreciate a book like that because it makes it so much easier to read, and just so much easier to enjoy. What I don't like, again, I hate the miscommunication trope. I hate it in every book, because here's the thing. Of course, people are going to have miscommunication. But when it becomes a trope, like it becomes a plot point, it just gets really annoying for me, to the point where it's like, can you guys just fucking be normal people and just talk? Can you please just do that? And it feels like the characters never want to. And I understand it's for tension and it's for angst and it's for whatever. I don't like it. Okay? I don't like it. And you know what? That's it. I don't like it. That's all I have to say about it. I don't like it. Because it also makes the characters seem so childish, too. Like, I don't know. It makes them seem like big old babies. I will say there were some cringe lines. There is something to be said about the fact that these characters talk a lot when they are fucking. Like, a lot. Like, doing monologues. I hate when authors write that, because it's like, will you shut the fuck up? I hate it. And like, okay, there was never like a moment where I was like, God, Zayden's so cringe. It's just one of those things where it's like, okay, we get it. We get it. You can say some like quippy lines and then keep going. I don't need an entire monologue right now. The info dumping at the beginning was a little bit much because in my head I was like, I just read the first book. Like, I know what happened. But I always feel like that, like when I read like a series and the beginning part of the next book is always like, this is what happened. This is what you missed on blah, blah, blah. Or welcome back. Here's what you missed. It's like, I didn't miss anything. I read the first book. Do you have to explain this all to me again? I don't know. Like, it feels like they're trying to tell me what happened as if I didn't read the first book. And it's like, of course I read the first book. Why are you telling me all this stuff again? I don't know. I know that's a thing that they do with sequels, but in this book, it felt like the info dumping was way too much. And I did feel like the pacing was a little off. The beginning started off pretty strong, and then the middle, it kind of had like a big old decline, and then I had to pick myself back up by the third act. Like, once Kat and like the Gryphon riders were introduced, I felt okay, and I kept going and going and going. But that middle part, God, it just kind of felt like we would like run and speed up and we'd get to a plot point and then we'd slow down forever. Like, it took forever to get to the next like exciting plot point, and then we'd speed up and we'd get to the next plot point, and then we'd slow down and we'd stop and we'd sit and take a watch around the park, and then we'd talk about some random thing that doesn't fucking matter, and then we'd go up and we'd go do the next plot point, and it just felt like a roller coaster of like fast pace, slow pace, fast pace, slow pace, fast pace, slow pace. And after a while I just got tired of it. Ratings. Okay, so this is new from my other ones. I stole this directly from my Instagram. My Instagram review. So I gave the rating a nice 4.5 out of 5. The spice, I said 2 out of 5 because there were 2 spicy scenes. So if you're looking for some spice and some romanticy, this does have some scenes for you. This is the playlist. These are a lot of the songs that I listened to when I was reading. So we have Luminary by Joel Sunny. This is a violin piece. I think it's very beautiful. It's kind of what, whenever they're like describing like Basgath and just the world, that song is like what's playing in my head. Chokehold Cherry Python by Ash Nico. This is a very like this song for me was that fight in the ring, in the sparring ring between Kat and Violet. That was the song. Do I want to know? I feel like this kind of like mimics the relationship between Xaden and Violet. Glory and Gore. Come on. I had to include Lord in here. And then we have My Tears Are Becoming a Sea by M83. This is just a beautiful song, and I feel like it really like it really hit towards the end. I feel like I love M83. I just do. They fit in literally any of my book playlists, I feel like. And over here is my favorite quote. My heart only beats as long as yours does, and when you die, I'll meet Malik at your side. Mic drop. Hold my purse because I am going to go bang my head against a wall. God bless Xaden Ryerson. Oh, God. Okay, final thoughts, guys. Overall, I do think that this was a pretty solid sequel to one of my favorite books of the year. Do I think it topped Fourth Wing for me? No. Unfortunately, I don't think it landed in my club of sequels that are better than the originals. It is not in the same category as Catching Fire. I'm sorry, it's not. But I did like it. I think it was pretty solid. From what I gathered, most people kind of agree with that sentiment that it's a pretty good sequel. It's a pretty solid sequel. I think that if you read and liked Fourth Wing, I think you'll like Iron Flame. A lot of the writing's pretty similar. Obviously, it's both the same series, but it doesn't feel like a huge decline in the writing quality. Like some other books that I've read, where as the series goes on, the writing quality gets a lot worse. I feel like the writing quality is still pretty similar. I think the only thing that's kind of sucks about this is that we got 2 books in a year. Like what, Iron Flame literally came out in May. Not Iron Flame. Fourth Wing came out in May. And then we got Iron Flame by November. And I don't think we're going to have such a quick turnaround for the third book. I don't even think that she's written the third book. And she's taking like a mental health break, which you do you, girl. But you really left me on a cliffhanger that I think is going to cause me some mental health problems. That is Iron Flame. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Sorry that this one was a little like not as high energy, because truthfully, I kind of forgot a lot of the plot. Because like I said, I read and finished this book almost 2 weeks ago. I made this PowerPoint 2 weeks ago, and I just like haven't had time to sit down and record this video. And who knows how much time I'm gonna have to sit down and edit the video. So who knows, this might come out in fucking December. If you finish this video, if you have made it to the very end, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you also enjoyed Fourth Wing and also Iron Flame. But if you didn't, let me know why. Very kindly disagree, okay? Feel free to respectfully disagree with me or agree. I love to hear everyone's opinions on the book. Thank you for watching again. Thank you for making it through. If you like the video, please like it. It lets me know that you appreciate the way that I'm doing my reviews. If you like my videos, feel free to subscribe so that you can keep watching. And follow me on all of my other social medias. I have a TikTok where I do a lot of book content. I have an Instagram where I also post my reviews. As I stated, I did steal a slide from one of my reviews. But yeah, if you want more consistent reviews and updates, definitely follow my Instagram. And also, I have my Goodreads linked if you want to keep up with what I am currently reading and where I am in those books. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. And I hope also whatever book you're reading is beautiful, life-changing, and a 5-star read. Thank you so much. Bye.